The sound of furniture being tossed around wakes up a couple in the middle of the night. Terrified for the safety of their little boy, they rush to their son's room, throwing open the door and expecting to see the worst. Some kidnapper in the middle of attempting to kidnap their 8-year-old son. But as soon as the door is hurled open, the couple are stunned to discover that the room is a mess. There's no one in there save for their son, curled up in the corner of the room, terrified and pointing the finger at his favorite doll, which just happens to be perfectly perched at the foot of his bed. Forget what you might have heard about Annabelle, because the true story of the world's most haunted doll is too scary even for Hollywood. Robert the doll was made in Germany in 1904 by the now famous Steiff Company, which produces high-end collector's teddy bears for people who are definitely not on an FBI watch list. Robert's owner, Robert Eugene Otto, from whom he adopted his name, received the doll as a gift from his grandfather, and little Otto was overjoyed at this life-size doll and his new best friend. The two were inseparable, and Otto would take his favorite doll to bed with him, out to play, and even on shopping trips. Eventually, the doll got his own wardrobe, including a sailor outfit likely worn by Otto, which the doll wears to this day. However, things would soon start to take a turn for the dark in Otto and Robert's relationship. Otto treated his doll like a real living best friend, and as time went on, things would start to go missing or get broke inside the house. And that's nothing new for any household with a rambunctious little boy, but Otto was insistent that it was actually Robert's fault, not his. As more and more things went missing or were found smashed to pieces, Otto's parents grew increasingly exasperated with him, though he remained insistent that it really wasn't his fault. The doll was behind it all, or at least most of it. Naturally, Otto's parents didn't believe him until one fateful night. It was late at night when Otto woke up to find Robert sitting at the foot of his bed, staring at him with black glass eyes. Then, pandemonium. Furniture suddenly began to be thrown around the room, dressers were tossed over, clothes spewed out all over the floor, bookshelves were violently cleared of books, a desk smashed into a nearby wall, the chair flying in an opposite direction. Otto's parents tore out of bed, expecting to run into an intruder either trying to rob the place or steal their precious child. But when they threw open the door, all the commotion suddenly stopped. The room was a chaotic mess, but utterly silent, and there was young Otto, curled up in terror. While the entire room had been tossed upside down, Robert the doll remained delicately perched on the foot of the bed. From here, things would only escalate. Young Otto's obsession with his doll only increased after the incident. He would frequently be engaged in lengthy discussions with Robert, treating it as if it were really living. However, now his parents started to hear an unfamiliar voice occasionally respond, prompting them to rush into the room only to discover little Otto and his doll, all alone. When questioned on who he was talking to, Otto would simply shrug and point to the doll. Sometimes, though, Robert would get angry, and that's when furniture would once more be flung across the room. Once Otto's terrified parents would rush into the room, the pandemonium would settle, and Otto would be left there alone, pointing at Robert. As the doll's displeasure increased, the toys would be found missing limbs or with their heads ripped off. The eyes on other dolls would have been pulled off. Each time, the doll was blamed. It wasn't just Otto and his parents experiencing the paranormal phenomenon either. Even the neighborhood kids were first-hand witnesses. Stories about the haunted doll quickly spread through the local community, and children passing by the house would give it a wide berth. While Otto was at school or away, the doll would be left on a chair looking out an upstairs window. Often children would report that they would look and see the doll there only to look again and have the doll be gone. A plumber once got dragged into Otto's paranormal world. Visiting the house to make some repairs, the plumber began to hear the sound of children playing, even though nobody but him was inside the house at the time. Investigating the source of the sound, he walked into Otto's room to find Robert sitting there, having moved from one side of the window he was seated at to the other. Leaving the room, the plumber heard the sound of objects being thrown and rushed back in to discover that several toys had been on the doll's lap and were now on the other side of the room. Eventually, young Otto grew up and moved out of the home. Now, Mr. Robert Eugene Otto, he went away to art school in Chicago and New York. Eventually, Otto made his way to Paris, where he met his wife. The two were married and moved back to the U.S. Otto was quick to recover several of his childhood items from his parents' home and move them to his new home with his new family. Of course, including Robert the doll. Robert the doll got his own special room in the attic, decorated with furniture, toys to play with, and even a teddy bear just for him specifically. Otto took good care of his childhood best friend, but it seems Otto's wife took serious issues with his obsession and the general creepiness of the doll itself. She requested that the doll be kept locked up, so Otto made sure to lock the door to the attic room after every visit. Robert the doll, however, did not like being locked up. Somehow he would reappear on a chair facing out one of the upstairs windows, like he had sat back in Otto's childhood home, waiting for his best friend to get back from school. Predictably, people began to give Otto's new home a wide berth. Unsettled by the very creepy doll staring out the window at them, rumors began to spread that Robert's glass eyes would actually turn in his head and follow passerbys, with others saying that he would simply disappear and when they looked back, reappear, looking in a completely different direction. It wasn't just unwary pedestrians who got spooked, however, as visitors to Otto's home would often complain of supernatural phenomenon. Many would swear that they heard footsteps in the attic where Robert was kept locked up. And of course, despite being under lock and key, Robert would have the habit of turning up places he didn't belong, like the guest room of a sleeping visitor. Even more terrifying, shocked guests would find random objects move completely on their own, as if pushed by an unseen force. Robert Eugene Otto died in 1974, leaving Robert the doll to a woman who bought the house. She kept it for 20 years before donating it to the Fort East Martello Museum in Florida, warning that the doll was indeed haunted and should be treated with great care. The museum staff naturally discounted the tales of a haunted doll, but were quick to change their minds when they experienced their own paranormal phenomenon. Once more, Robert the doll would wander out of his locked display case, showing up places he didn't belong. The sound of children's voices would be heard in the dead of night, when nobody but the closing staff was still in the building. Often these would be accompanied by the sound of running feet and objects getting knocked over. Robert remains locked up in his display case to this day and is one of the museum's prime attractions. Visitors are warned to ask for permission before taking Robert's photo, as those who don't almost always find themselves running into tragedy. Cameras will glitch when taking a photo when permission was not granted, only to begin working again as soon as the visitor leaves the museum. Others, however, suffer worse fates, with tragedy befalling them shortly after their visit. Car wrecks, divorces, ruined finances, job losses. The misery that Robert has wrought on people's lives is so great that the museum regularly receives letters begging for his forgiveness and for him to lift the curse he's placed on people's lives. An incredible 1 to 3 letters a day are sent to Robert. Not all the letters, however, are asking for forgiveness. Some are asking Robert for advice, others asking him to place a curse on the subject of the writer's ire. Some are even fan letters, perhaps most disturbingly from children as young as 8 years old, who often include portraits of the doll. If you're curious to meet Robert in person, you can visit the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West yourself, but you better take our advice and mind your manners when you do, or you might find Robert waiting for you at home when you get there. Now check out real creepy cursed objects, or click this other video instead.